Welcome back everybody, I hope you're all doing really well. Today I want to do a tutorial with the Fractal Audio FM3 which looks at some of the basic functionality as well as explaining some of the key terms that you need to understand to get the most out of your FM3. Let's do it. Probably the 5 most important terms when we're talking about the Fractal ecosystem. Presets, blocks, scenes, channels, and controllers. Presets, pretty self-explanatory. There's over 500 presets in the FM3 and we can configure them just about any way we like. If we look at the editor, you can see we have this grid. And on the grid, we can place blocks. Blocks process audio, and there are several types of block. For example, this is an amplifier block. As you can see, there are several amp style parameters that I can tweak in it. Over here, we have a reverb block, and there's a whole bunch of parameters dedicated to reverb processing. So we've got presets and we've got blocks. You basically think of this like effects pedals or amps, and you have these virtual cables where you can connect different blocks together in just about any way you like. So that's really, really powerful. And I like that because it's noise free. It's doesn't cost you any more to have like a long cable in here either. So in a block, we also have a powerful feature called a channel. So a channel is a property of a given block. For example, in the amp block on channel A, I have selected the Brit JM45 type. I've twisted some knobs. But on channel B, I can select a totally different amp type, like this Atomica High, and I can set the knobs wherever I like them, and I can switch between them. My JTM45 sounds like this. Whereas on channel B, I have the Atomica High, which is a Marshall style amp. In fact, they're both Marshall style amps. One is just a lot more aggressive sounding than the other. On channel C, I could select a different type of amplifier as well. This is the USA 2C++, a Mesa Boogie style amp. Now, the majority of the blocks in the FM3 have 4 channels. For example, the cabinet block has 4 channels. The reverb block has 4 channels. There are a few little exceptions in there, but just about every block has this channels feature. So presets contain blocks and blocks contain channels. Now, scenes. And this is where it might get a little bit confusing. People often confuse channels, presets, and scenes. I think of scenes as a preset within a preset. And scenes essentially automate the switching of a variety of functions. They can manipulate the bypass state of a block. For example, if I wanted the reverb to be off on scene 1, but I wanted it to be on in scene 2, scenes can remember that. If I want the amp to be on channel A on scene 1, but on channel B on scene 2, I can do that as well. There's a bunch of other things which scenes can automate for us as well, but I'll give you a very basic example. Scene 1 has the amp block on channel A and the reverb bypassed, but when I go to scene 2, the amp block switches channels, so it changes the type of the amp and all the settings, and it activates the reverb block. It's actually left the cab block alone, which is really, really nice. So I can go from channel B, this Atomica High with reverb, and I could switch to scene 1, which is a different type of amp with no reverb. Very, very nice stuff. The final ingredient, controllers. And I think of controllers like an army of little helpers. Any of these parameters that have, see these little yellow dots, you can right click them and you can assign a type of controller to them. I'm going to give you an example of that using a preset where I have a few different types of controller. One type of controller that I use all the time is a control switch. So for example, this USA 2C++, just like every example of the amp block, has an input boost feature. There's also another thing called the fat switch on here. Don't worry too much about the specifics of these, but what I've done is I've right-clicked each of them, and up here you can assign a controller to modify this particular switch. So as you can see here, this is called the Modifiers menu, and basically what's going to happen is the state of a control switch can be controlled per scene. So on scene 1, I have both of these two switches. The scenes remember that they're off, and it sounds pretty cool. Now, if I go to scene 2, the way I've set scene 2 up is that the fat switch, there's a controller attached to the fat switch, and the scene says, hey, I want that controller on, and then the controller goes, well, I'm attached to the fat switch is now on. We have the same tone, but with this fat switch activated. I could have another example where I only turn on the input boost using a control switch, or when I turn both on. So both on's really cool. This is a lot of gain, a lot of good stuff. Very, very nice stuff. There's a dedicated controllers menu as well. So I was talking about the control switches. You can see there's 6 control switches, and they can remember their state per scene. They can also just remember the last setting. So you could dedicate a foot switch on your FM3, for example, to control the fat switch or to control the bypass state of a block and have it carry across between scenes. There are also a whole variety of scenes like LFOs, ADSRs, sequencers. The sequencer is really, really, really powerful. There is an envelope control. There's a set of manual controls, which we can talk about in another video, but the envelope controller lets you do stuff like set up auto wires. There's scene controllers, another favorite of mine, and we have this general modifiers menu where we can actually see what's going on. So I mentioned scene controllers. You know how we talked about channels and switching channels? You might want to have, say, the same amp with 4 different levels of gain. You can do that with channels because we have 4 channels, or you can take something like this, the input drive on an amp, assign it to a scene controller, and what scene controllers do, I love scene controllers so much, they let you set the value of that particular parameter. For example, on scene 1, it's 15%, scene 2, 50%, and scene 3, 100%. So as I cycle through these scenes, you're gonna watch the input drive knob increase. It's like having the world's most accurate roadie. And as you can see, you can assign a modifier or a controller to just about any parameter you like. I mentioned, for example, an auto wah before. So if I set up a wah block, and let's say I wanted this auto wah to respond to my picking dynamics, I could set the controller to the envelope. Very, very nice. So that as I sit here and pluck, I gotta make sure I engage this block. As I play softer or louder, it's gonna sweep the wah for me. Controllers, absolutely beautiful things. And the state of particular controllers can be controlled on a scene by scene basis. So hopefully this makes a little bit of sense between presets, blocks, channels, scenes, and controllers. A really advanced kind of application of something like a controller is we can have a detector which detects the pitch of the notes we're playing, and then we can map that onto a parameter. In this example, I've mapped the pitch follower onto the overdrive control. So as I play a low note, I'm gonna have less gain. As I play higher, I'm gonna have more gain. That's pretty awesome. I've always wanted that thing out of a rig where you play low and it's nice and crisp and clear. And as you play high, you know, you get more gain. I did a video about this a little while ago on the Axe FX3, and it's kind of, someone called it the Angus Young effect. You know, when Angus digs in on a solo, it's just like his pick attack is so great, he gets more gain. We can use that with the pitch follower. So that's going right off the deep end, but super powerful. You can assign this to just about any parameter you like. What we're gonna do next is I'm gonna show you how this all works using 2 examples. I'm gonna show you my live preset where I change channels on a few blocks. I have a couple of controllers, but I keep the amp pretty much the same. And then I'll show you another example with a whole bunch of effects and a whole bunch of different amplifiers that I would use more in a studio kind of setting. So this is my live preset. I'm using the USA 2C++, and I have a control switch assigned to the input boost. The reason being, when I step on my solo scene, I want more gain. So that's pretty cool. Then I have a delay block with 2 different channels. One channel is set up for my lead sound and another is set up for my rhythmic delay sound. And I've got another sound where I have a rotary speaker and a delay. So scene 1, we'll start there and we'll just go through these 4 scenes, and I have them assigned to foot switches on the FM3. There's 3 foot switches on the FM3 itself, and I can use tap and hold to access 4 scenes, tap tempo, and the tuner. And that's how I use it live. So this is gonna be preset, this is a live preset, scene number 1, my main rhythm guitar sound. So that's pretty cool. This patch is actually dialed in for a different guitar, not this particular guitar, but this is more about functionality than tones at the moment. Then, when I go to scene 2, what happens is my input boost gets turned on by that control switch, the delay gets activated, and furthermore, in the output section, I can actually increase my volume on the scene. Nice little trick there. So not only is my guitar more saturated, it was already pretty saturated before, but now it's really saturated. It's louder and there's delay. Perfect for guitar solos. I also have a wah attached to an expression pedal here, which will automatically engage when I step on it. So that's a pretty cool thing. Scene 3, what's gonna happen is my delay block is gonna switch over to channel B. The boost is gonna get turned off. Not too much happens. Actually, my guitar gets turned down a little bit from the solo scene. It's a very kind of warm sounding rhythmic delay. And then scene 4, exactly the same as that, just turns the rotary on for me. That's everything that I need live to do a ragdoll gig. But if I was sitting around at home noodling, or if I was doing a session where I need a variety of different sounds, I have this kitchen sink preset because it's everything including the kitchen sink. The way I use this is a little bit different. I have 4 channels in the amp block, each assigned to a different amp. And I have my scene set up so that scene 1 is channel A, scene 2 is channel B, etc., etc. And then I have the different effects all bypassed by default in each scene. Well, except for this compressor and a bit of EQ here. This is what we have, say, on scene 4, which is a JTM 45, a kind of bluesy, cleaner thing. So if I was recording a song and I wanted that particular sound, I might go through and do a couple of takes. I have the option to engage a drive block on here. I could turn on, for example, a trem with that if I wanted that effect. And so on and so forth. If, for example, I wanted a different amp sound, like I wanted to go to the Atomica High because I love the Atomica High, I've got the same kind of setup. It switches to channel A on the amp block on scene 1, and then I would just add effects kind of as I like it. For example, I might like a multi-delay and a phaser added to this. That's pretty cool, but maybe I want a different type of phaser effect that's not a univibe. Well, I can go to one of the other channels on there. For example, I could select a Script 45 phaser. That's kind of nice. I might want a kind of wild and crazy phase effect. You know, I could try this Borg phaser and turn the rate up and the depth down a little bit and get this. I could go through and I could combine that with a bunch of different effects. So I'm using one preset in this case, and then I have 4 preset scenes, which basically just bring up basic amp sounds. Then once I've got those basic amp sounds, I would season them with different effects. So that's one way to work. But in my live preset, because I just want to play guitar and jump around and have a good time playing in a rock and roll band, I've got a whole bunch of automation going on between the scenes. It just works better for me. It means I'm doing less noodling around with the effects and I'm focusing more on my guitar playing, which at the end of the day is the end goal. So there is a kind of brief overview of some of the functionality in the FM3, and in my opinion, the main things that you need to understand if you've never used a fractal processor before, and if you have been using a fractal processor for a while, hopefully there were a couple of cool little tips and tricks in there. The main thing that I didn't cover were the foot switch assignments and the layouts, but we'll do that in another video. That kind of deserves its own kind of 15 or 20 minute slot in my opinion. So I hope you guys got something out of this tutorial. If you have any specific questions or you have any requests for things you would like me to look at in future tutorials, please let me know in the comments. I love hearing from all of you guys, whether it's positive feedback or it's not. If there's something I missed that you really wished I covered, let me know in the comments and I will do my best to incorporate it in the future. In the meantime, you guys stay excellent, be good to one another, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.